This is the third video we made for the project The Worldwide School Psychological Support in the Post-COVID Era. The title of the video is Bullying and Cyberbullying, and more specifically, Psychological Consultancy for Students. The role of school psychologists, they try to deal with all students' problems that arise in school life. In recent years, the role of school psychologists has been institutionalized in primary and secondary school education in our country. The psychologist is appointed together with a social worker in the primary and secondary schools of special and general education, and in collaboration with the school teachers, they try to deal with all the problems that arise in school life. The role of school psychologists, they help students in teaching them how to learn. The school psychologists focus on student quality relationships and prevent the consolidation of dysfunctional and toxic behaviors. More specifically, the school psychologist does not focus on the acquisition of knowledge, but on the relationships that a student creates with those around them and the quality of these relationships. The school psychologist tries to investigate the nature of these social relationships and prevent the consolidation of dysfunctional and toxic behaviors in children. For example, they can teach students to understand some actions of their classmates as messages for communication and not to interrupt them as insulting to their personality. They can also show another child who is used to tolerating frustration and experiencing pain to such an extent that they provoke the classmates to treat them violently so that they feel the familiar feeling of pain, learns not to do that. A school psychologist against school bullying. Regarding the issue of dealing with school bullying, the school psychologist uses a variety of approaches and techniques. First of all, the school psychologists have close cooperation and communication with the teacher and the parents' association. Psychologists are the facilitators and wish to impart their knowledge to teachers on how to deal with their students' challenges in and out of the classroom. School psychologists often coordinate parent-teacher groups in which they provide counseling and, through experiential learning, help them teach their students and children positive social behaviors and boundaries consistently and lovingly. The school psychologist has the opportunity to work with all the children in the school and with the victims as well as the perpetrators of school bullying. Special mention is made of this because it is not easy to work with abusers. Rarely does an abuser come to an outside psychologist's office for treatment. If something like this happens, it will be because some punishment has been imposed on him or her, for example, from the police, and again, he or she will not have come for psychotherapy of his or her own free will. How school psychologists manage school performance and bullying. The school psychologists help students in teaching them how to learn. There are many study techniques and ways of learning to organize study, for example, mnemonic techniques. At school, the psychologist has the opportunity to have access to all children, observe them during breaks and in class, call their parents, see their ability and work with them. It is a unique opportunity for the children who are victims at home and bullies at school to change basic elements in their personality before leaving the school premises. The school psychologist, therefore, works with the perception of the abuser, first try to make the student abuser understand himself and his actions. Most children do not realize the intentions behind the violent and intimidating act and have distorted perceptions. Then the school psychologist tries, after gaining the student's trust, to find and create together with the student, the bully, new ways of communication and interaction with his or her classmates. How school psychologists manage anxiety and bullying. In the event that the psychologist observes intense anxiety in a child who receives or practices school bullying, he or she uses specific techniques aimed at identifying dysfunctional thoughts and deeper introspection to see where they come from. The school psychologist suggests his involvement in extracurricular group activities and teaches him or her how to respond to actions that make him or her angry, not with revenge but with healthy anger. They work with both the perpetrator and the victim of school bullying in acquiring social skills. Learning can include simple but basic things that contribute to a child's victimization, such as coughing and not covering their mouth, to learning to follow directions in team game, to waiting their turn in the cafeteria, and they say no out loud when something is unpleasant to him or her. The school psychologist does not hold psychotherapeutic meetings at school. He or she carries out counseling work and refers parents and students to appropriate structures. How the school psychologist can manage family problems and bullying. The family environment plays an important role in the appearance and manifestation of a behavior. More specifically, the characteristics that the family has to its credit contribute to the emergence and maintenance of aggressive behavior. More in detail, in a study carried out with the aim of investigating the relationships between students' aggressive behavior and parenting practices, it emerged that parents who follow harsh boundary practices or show inconsistency in their tasks push children to adopt specific forms of behavior. The same opinion seems to be supported by another view who linked the child's aggressive behaviors at school with the imposition of discipline at home. In another study, they emphasized the mother's practice and how they are able to influence the child's aggressive behavior. The importance of the family in maintaining positive behavior is supported by another study, according to which the more supportive the family environment is, the less aggressive children become. In more detail, children who grow up in a supportive and pleasant environment without tensions and conflicts develop positive social behavior, while on the contrary, children who grow up in a family context full of tensions and conflicts are more likely to develop aggressive behavior at school. How school psychologists manage sexual identity and bullying. Adolescence is a special development period which is characterized by many and varied changes. The teenager explores him or herself and acquires a stable identity. Some teenagers have their own identity and some others inherit a donor identity from their family or of origin. One of the issues that young people of this age must solve is sexual. They will have to decide which biological sex of a person, male, female, or both sexes, they wish to have a romantic relation with, and they will also have to decide what gender expression they would like to have. However, society treats both non-heterosexual sexual orientation and free gender expression as a different choice, and that is why teenagers easily become victims of school bullying. There are teenagers who believe that there is one view of reality and have the unshakable belief that different ways of thinking and acting in this world mean that one is right and the other is not. The main role of a school psychologist is to contribute to the acceptance of diversity in the student population as well as in the educational community, and to enable differences to no longer be contrasts and conflicts but compositions. How the school psychologists help for sexual identity. The first step should be taken by the society, and it concerns the changes in the attitude towards diversity. Many actions should be done in the community to accept the freedom of the individual so that the individual does not feel guilty of having the will to decide about his or her body. The family of children who decide to choose to have a sexual identity different from the one that defines their biological sex often find it difficult to accept their children's decision. Its support can be done by the school psychologist to avoid the marginalization of the child by his or her own parents. The school psychologist often deals with bullying in a systemic way. That is that he can notice that in a school class a student has been selected as the target because he or she differs from the rest in a characteristic that is considered by society to be abnormal. This is so that the members of the class can project all their negative feelings onto him for their own personal reasons and not for his or her own diversity. The school psychologist, through observation and using systemic approach techniques, can help to deal with such group phenomena. The school psychologist who works with children in adolescence is differentiated from the psychologists who work with children of school age. Teenagers most often come alone to talk to the psychologist, as opposed to younger children who will be brought by the teacher or parent. Adolescents are less guided by teachers and are looking for a person with whom they can feel safe, trust, and can express the anger that they are unable to express to their familiar faces. The school psychologist has in his or her hands a multitude of technical and methodological tools. The school psychologist often chooses to use projective tests such as draw a family, draw a house, a tree or person, administer personality tests and intelligence tests, and role play with students. How can the school psychologist help for sexual identity? Use good practices. There are also many good practices in manual for dealing with school violence, which the school psychologist can reproduce depending on the group of students he or she has to work with. In particular, We mention a good practice such as the use of cinema in the field of psychology to deal with intra-school violence. Showing a film to a small group of students and then discussing it with appropriate questions is a very successful exercise in raising students' awareness of violence. One recommended movie is The Wave. The schools of primary and secondary education in Greece have been staffed in recent years by psychologists and social workers. These two specialties work together to deal with the many and varied problems that arise every day in the schools. Their work is based on prevention and intervention. School psychologists work with following some basic principles, such as respect for diversity, opposition to any kind of exclusion, decoding and understanding students' action as their message for communication, opposition to cultural difference, preventing violence as a problem-solving tactic between groups. The school psychologist holds individual and group meetings with students and encourages cooperation with the student's family. If necessary, they will do individual counseling for a student and his family. They also work closely with the school's teachers and educational institutions, such as the head of education. There is a close link between the school and the community, and many times the school psychologists are in contact with interprofessional teams, for example, child psychotherapists. The school psychologists vary their intervention from school to school depending on the needs and the school's characteristics. They are, with close collaboration with the teachers, give guidelines on how to recognize the signs of students who are struggling emotionally. It is impossible for the psychologist to be able to get in touch with all children in school, and that is why the help of the teachers is valuable in being able to identify and approach the children who need help. Most teachers are positive about the presence of psychologists in school and copy the way they communicate with children. School psychologists, in meetings with students in effort to deal with the phenomena of intra-school violence, work with them on the following topics. Positive social skills. Students should first recognize and then understand another's opinion. They should also learn to negotiate with their peers. The other topic is anger management. A small introduction will be made because of the necessity of experiencing emotions. All emotions, including negative ones, are permissible, but not all behaviors are permissible. That means that students have the right to feel and express their anger with respect for themselves and others, but they have absolutely no right to behave aggressively. Third topic, support for managing threats and bullying from peers. The help of the school psychologist is important and can also be done with many techniques such as role-playing, watching films, experiential exercises. The school psychologist teaches the child techniques such as maintaining eye contact during teasing, self-control, and keeping his or her cool. Another topic, to teach children's rights. The school psychologist teaches children their rights. A child who knows its rights automatically knows and respects the rights of others. As he or she self-esteem grows, so does his or her respect for peers, parents, and other adults. For example, a child learns that it has the right to express its opinion, but it also has the obligation to express it in a way that does not hurt others. Another topic, the element of the citizen. The school psychologist, through the relationship creates with students, seeks to pass on some basic values which the students will incorporate and be guided in their adult lives in order to have a harmonious coexistence with others. There are honesty, fairness, empathy, critical thinking, self-discipline, respect for others, courage in standing up for opinion, responsibility, concern for the community, and self-respect. The role of the school psychologist brings many positive changes in the behavior of students. It has helped a lot in destigmatizing the whole psychological process, as it is much easier for families to ask for help for all the difficulties they face. The techniques of school psychologists in dealing with intra-school bullying. Those techniques are a first exercise of psychometric tools. The psychologists should clarify whether school performance affects the practice of school bullying and to what extent. Second, practicing psychometric tools. Then, active participation of all children in the policy of recruiting and dealing with school bullying. The psychologist would be good in the context of dealing with school aggression to work with students and teachers on a group level. In the foreground, it should be clarified what school bullying means and what cyberbullying means. More specifically, the students, though, through the group activities in the classroom, which will be organized by the school psychologist and the teacher of the department, will have the opportunity to judge and recognize which behaviors are acceptable and which are unacceptable. Another technique is strengthening and socialization of children, creating groups. According to the above research, the lack of socialization leads to the adoption of an antisocial behavior, which negatively affects the school performance of the children. Team building plays an important role on this. The psychologist creates group with children either from the safe department or from other departments in order to strengthen socialization and to deal with common problems such as low performance in an exam. Another technique is the parent group systemic approach. The psychologist should make the parents of the children allies so that they can deal with the problem systematically. This will be done through parent empowerment techniques such as experiential activities in which parents discover many aspects of themselves and their role within the family. In the experiential activities, parents are invited to take part in events that hypothetically happen and how they would deal with them by recording thoughts, behaviors, and observations. Another is dealing with stress immediately. Another technique for dealing with anxiety and anger is relaxation techniques. Breathe in and breathe out, in which the child first learns to breathe correctly, to relax and count down to a certain number. If the anxiety comes from low performance, then the psychologist uses the reward techniques which reinforces the goal set by the child, such as understanding grammar and not writing perfectly in a test. The footprint. Children often find it difficult to express its self-feeling and as a result avoid conversations that have to do with them. Through a drawing, the psychologist can understand several elements of the child's personality in combination with the individual session. Many children express intense anger, which is easily perceived through a drawing. Another technique is social learning. This technique is to read a story or a book that features co-pronunciations of school children. The child is asked to recognize which co-pronunciations are dysfunctional and what are the ways to deal with them. In this way, the child takes an active role in what is happening and how he can deal with it by taking an active role in the current situation. The thought journal is a technique that the psychologist is providing a daily diary in which the child writes its situation, its thoughts about the situation, the feeling he or she gets, and finally the behavior that adapts. Individual activities, emotional learning, social learning. It is important that the child understands emotions and learns to communicate them in a healthy way. The psychologists, through activities, aim at recognizing and naming the emotions of both the child itself and the fellow human being. Empathy, learn to understand the causes and conditions under which emotions are experienced. Control of bullying. There are two main methods employed in controlling bullying. The first is prevention and acting before something happens. And the other is reactions, acting when something is happening or has just happened. The recommended reactions are avoid rigid confrontations. It is recommended that bullies not be met with physical violence to avoid contributing to the promoting the apparition of violent environment in society. Another is reports of the witness. Witnesses, whether known to the victim or not, are an important source of information in cases of bullying. Intervention by a bystander. It is recommended that bystanders and other third person avoid intervening in a conflict situation due to their potential to aggressive the situation. Parental response. Experts advise that involved parents avoid talking directly to each other. Instead, it is recommended to contact the school and allow it to take actions, responsibility, and act as a mediator. Teacher response. Teacher intervention are considered important in many anti-bullying programs. In many countries, teachers have a legal obligation to prevent their students from harm. Teachers can intervene by using authority-based intervention, by using non-punitive approaches to bullying, by supporting victims, and by involving other teachers of professionals. Suspension and exclusion. Where no other solutions for bullying works, or in cases where the bullying is very severe, it may be necessary to suspend or expel the offender. Moving. In cases that are more difficult to solve, the victim may consider a change of institution or even moving with his or her family to another place. And then psychological support. Victims of bullying may require support after the bullying ends, such as help with making new friends or taking up new activities. And everybody, I think, wishes for the bullying to be ended. And that was the end of our video. Thanks for watching it.